It's late September already. This range already got dumped on by like a foot of snow a couple weeks ago. It's all melted by now, but I'm not going to have much time after this to give these ridge routes another attempt. As you can tell, it's super smoky out. Most of the smoke is actually from all of the wildfires burning on the west coast. It's looking like the smoke should clear out in a couple days, but that's because there's some weather moving in. It's Friday today, and it looks like Saturday and Sunday especially there's going to be some rain. Might even be some thunderstorms or snow. Not ideal weather conditions, but this is kind of the only time that I was able to do this hike. It's getting kind of late in the season, so it's kind of now or never. So far I've done 2 attempts for these ridge routes. First attempt in the Cabinet Mountains in the springtime was a total failure. I was just out there way too early. Second attempt in the Snowcrest range was a success. But out of all of the ranges that I have planned for these ridge routes, that was definitely the easiest one. So now for this third attempt, I'm in the Absaroka Mountain range. And this is a big range. There are some serious mountains out here. So I come out here with the primary goal of coming back alive and not getting hurt in any serious way. And then my second goal is to just push myself as hard as I can out here while still making responsible choices. And my third goal is to complete the route. So it's definitely not the top priority. This is about a 50-mile route, and at least 40 miles are going to be completely off trail up on the ridgeline. It's going to be a lot of scree walking, that's for sure. I'll be going slow, and I don't count on doing more than 10 miles a day. So I'm a little bit nervous about this hike, but it's definitely the most researched route that I've ever done. And that's why I'm nervous about it, is because I know that there's going to be some real tricky sections in here. But that's kind of the point of doing these ridge routes, to get outside my comfort zone and to practice those decision-making skills in the moment. I think it'll take about 5 days. Going to deal with some weather, going to deal with a lot of sketchy terrain, but we'll see what happens. Backbone of the Absaroka range is kind of a U shape. Right now I'm on the eastern side of the U, looking over at the western ridgeline, and it is just completely shrouded in the smoke right now. And that's kind of a good metaphor for about how clearly I understand this route. Even with taking all those pictures and trying to scout out this route as much as possible, there's still so much unknown. So now that I'm up here, I have to go right back down, and I've got about 1.5 miles of bushwhacking to do through that forest down there. But then after I get out of the forest, I'll be up on that big open plateau over there. That's the West Boulder Plateau. Now that I'm up on the plateau and out in the open again, the wind has picked up and there's a bite to it. I'm at almost 10,000 feet. You can definitely feel that fall is here and that winter is just around the corner up here. One thing I didn't anticipate is that it's getting dark a lot earlier now, and especially with all this smoke in the air, it's getting dark even sooner. Well, change of plans. I just discovered these lakes below me. I still have like 3 miles to get to the lake that I was planning on going to. Originally I chose not to do these because it's kind of a far down climb, but it's about 500 feet. These lakes look like a pretty good alternative. Hopefully the weather holds out for a little bit. It's nice up here though, it's not too windy. It's a little bit cool, so that'll keep me from sweating. And it looks slightly less smoky. Some more positives. So I think that's the knife edge. That was one of the first unknowns on this route. Looks like I have 2 options here. Go straight up that, or go down a ways, come around and then go up that. That looks easier, but I also have to go down. I think I can do that. Yeah, I'd rather not go down all that steep, loose scree. That's not too bad. I just hope none of these rocks decide to fall right now. These poles are not very helpful right now. Okay, made it past one obstacle. Probably like 50 more to go. I think I'll probably have a few more of those just on this knife edge alone. Every time I see one of those obstacles and doubt myself a little bit, wondering if it's possible or not, and then I do it, now I'm standing up on top of it. That raises the confidence level just a little bit. Wind has picked up all of a sudden, and it is cold. It's just like an extra layer of stress on top of what I'm already doing. Kind of makes me feel like I'm being rushed. It's a good opportunity to practice remaining calm in stressful situations. I just need to take my time through these places. A caterpillar? Wow. Yeah, I can do that. Well, that came just in time. Just finished up that knife edge and it started raining. Pretty light sprinkles so far, but the wind is howling and it's so cold. Got a lake coming up in a couple miles that I can go down to and hunker down if the weather gets real bad. But if it doesn't get much worse than this, then I think I'll push on to the next lake, which is in about 8 miles. I'm at the pass on the West Boulder Plateau that I came up to scout out some pictures for this route a couple weeks ago. So I actually have been here before. The rain hasn't been too bad, it's just been some light sprinkles, but there's definitely more weather on the way. And it's looking pretty dark over there. So I could either go right down the pass, there's actually a trail that would take me down to the lake, and I could kind of hunker down there and wait for this weather to pass. Or I could keep going, and I think what I'm going to do here is set up a time-lapse these clouds rolling through the mountains, and that'll give me a chance to kind of watch these clouds and see how things are developing, and hopefully get a little better prediction of what to expect for the next few hours. It's hard to tell. This is kind of a tough decision, but it kind of looks like the weather is going to give me maybe an hour or two of a break. I think I can get another section of ridgeline done before I'll have to hunker down for the day. There's one knife edge section that looks pretty rugged. A little concerned about that, but other than that, the next 2 or 3 hours looks pretty straightforward. And then after that, there's a bunch of places that I can bail out if I have to. So that's the rugged looking ridge in front of me. It'll take some time, but it looks doable. That's pretty amazing. There's like a river of rock going down this valley as this ridge deteriorates. The rock just flows downhill like water. So I made it past the rugged part of the ridge that I was a little bit worried about. Wasn't that bad, so that's a relief. And now that I'm on the other side of it, the weather is starting to move in. Clouds are starting to spill over into this basin. There is so much unknown, so much unpredictability out here, especially with this weather. I'm constantly running scenarios through my head and trying to make plans. You have to be flexible. If I tried to stick to a plan that I made up before I even got out here, I would definitely get myself into trouble. I'm constantly taking in new variables into account and adjusting my plans accordingly. Life inside of a ping pong ball. Just finished up that section of ridgeline, and now I got a new section of ridgeline up in front of me. Weather hasn't really changed much. There's just a lot of low-hanging and fast-moving clouds coming through, but it hasn't really rained. So I think I'm just going to keep going as long as I can. Now it just started getting a lot darker, like really quickly. It's looking like there are some thicker clouds moving in now. Something might be changing. The lake that I'm hoping to camp at is only about 2 miles away, and it's mostly downhill. What looks to be a fairly mellow ridgeline. So I'm going to try and get there before any serious weather hits. The weather is really holding out, and off in the distance there's some clear sky. Actually, it looks like the weather's going to clear up today. That big one behind me is Boulder Mountain. My new plan is to go up and over Boulder Mountain, and then on the other side is Boulder Lake. That looks like a nice big lake to camp at. That might be pushing it a little bit as far as daylight. I think it's going to take about 3 hours. I probably have 3.5 hours of good light left. Right as the sun comes out. That's the first time I've seen the sun all day. Nice. It looks fairly straightforward getting to Boulder Mountain, except for that. Sheer cliff on one side, almost a sheer cliff on the ridge that I'm trying to go up. Looks like if I was super determined, I could possibly go straight up that, but that doesn't seem necessary. I'm thinking I'm gonna try and kind of side skirt around the mountain, get around the other side, and then go up the back side behind it. I haven't really seen the back side yet, but can't be much worse than this. Looks like I'm not the first one to have this idea. I think I'm following a mountain goat trail around the side of this big pinnacle here. But with that being said, it is a mountain goat trail, and they are wizards at walking on steep slopes, so there isn't much of a trail to follow here. Look at that beautiful sun ray. That wasn't so bad. Got around that obstacle, and now I just have a few big climbs and descents to do. But if I do this and then I camp at Boulder Lake, I'll actually be ahead of schedule, which is good because the whole first half of this route is actually the easy part. The western side of this route is definitely the more rocky and gnarlier side of it, so I want to allow myself plenty of time to kind of pick my way through there. It's like hail snowing on me now. Looks like some more weather's moving in, and I'm getting the feeling that this stuff is a little bit more serious. So I might have to revise my plan to go up and over Boulder Peak and camp at Boulder Lake. There is one lake that's closer than that, but I still have to go up and over this peak. Hopefully I can do that pretty quickly. I think it's time to get off this ridge. But the only way to do that really is to go up first. there's a lot of things that you don't get to control out here. The terrain and the weather are completely outside of my control. The only things that I can control are my actions. Everything in this chute is going to be pretty loose. Not knowing if I'm going the right way or if I can continue the way that I'm going is very stressful. And I'm kind of in a constant state of self-doubt out here. Oh man, that's scary. I do not want to be up here right now. It's not a comfortable place to be in. But being in this state all the time teaches me to kind of weigh my own thoughts, to learn to listen to the ones that are important and to ignore the ones that are counterproductive. So those are two things that I have to balance all the time, because usually the thoughts that will get me through the route are not the ones that are going to keep me safe. Rocks are getting slippery. Okay, there's my lake. Now I just have to get down there. The ones that keep me safe get top priority, but the ones that get me through the route take a close second priority. So I'm always constantly weighing those things. And when I do make the right choice and I actually do get through a tricky area, it reaffirms the confidence that I have in my decision making, and it reaffirms the confidence that I have in myself. So by placing myself in extreme situations out here, situations that used to be stressful or scary or just uncomfortable in regular life really aren't as bad. Okay, that was an exciting end to an exciting day. But it's pretty cold out and a lot of my stuff got wet. So I'm gonna try and dry out a little bit. I'll head down to the lake, fill up on water, and then get nice and cozy in my sleeping bag. The weather was supposed to be pretty bad this morning too, so I slept in a little bit, trying to watch the clouds and figure out what they're gonna do. I'm still not quite sure. Got some beautiful sun in the east, but to the west it's looking pretty dark. But it hasn't really developed into anything yet. So I got tired of waiting. Figured I'll just get hiking and see what happens. Well, of course, as soon as I decide to pack everything up and hike back up to the ridge, I am met with some pretty dark clouds over there. I think what I'm going to do is get up to the ridge anyway, just so I can see over to the other side. Then I'll be looking over to the west where all this stuff is coming from and get a better view of it. Well, it's not looking good, but it's not looking horrible either. Off in the distance on the west side of this route, some of those peaks are pretty snow covered and they didn't have any snow on them yesterday. Not quite sure what to do here. Up there is where I'm going, and that's pretty shrouded in fog right now. So I decided to hunker down here. I got lucky with the weather yesterday. I kind of pushed my luck, and it paid off. I got in all the miles I was hoping to get in that day. But I decided I'm not going to try and ask for that to happen 2 days in a row. Just out of respect for the mountains. I'm up here on the ridge. Found a little bit of shelter behind the trees, so it shouldn't be too bad as far as wind. And this will be a good place to poke my head out and see what the weather's doing, because I can look over to the west from here, and that's where everything's coming from. So like always, we'll see what happens. So it's noon now, and it still hasn't rained. The wind picked up a little bit. Definitely really cold out, but the clouds are clearing up, and it's looking kind of nice. 37 degrees right now. With that wind chill, it's well below freezing. That's always my favorite thing about doing these hikes in the high country. Coming up over a ridge and having a brand new view laid out in front of you. This is what makes me forget about how cold or uncomfortable I am. This looks like the first ridge that I'm going to have to bypass completely. It has a very sharp knife edge, super steep on both sides. There's basically no room to walk up there. So I'm going to have to go down here by West Boulder Lake, go around it, and then get back up on the ridge. Successfully on the other side of the knife edge. Now I have another obstacle in front of me. It looks possible, but also very slow. And I think I see a route to go just across the hillside below it. That'll be much faster. Looks like I'm on a mountain goat track again. This is their home, and obviously they know the best way to get around the mountains. So I actually feel pretty confident when I hike on their trails. So I'm kind of at the bottom of the U of this route, and I'm looking over at the west side of the route now. Right there is Mount Cohen. That's the part that's so gnarly I'm not even going to try. I'm going to go below it. Got another rugged section of ridgeline coming up. This one doesn't really look like it can be bypassed in any easy way. And it doesn't look too bad. I think it's doable. Oh. Yep, that looks pretty rugged. So I'm a little behind schedule after waiting out the weather for half a day this morning. But there's a lake that I was hoping to get to. It's about a mile away still. And as you can see, the sun is going down. As long as the ridgeline holds out and it's not too difficult to hike, should be able to make it there no problem. Now I just have to go up there. Simple enough. Day 4, and it's another brisk morning, about 35 degrees. And today I'll be getting onto the western half of this route. This is the side that's supposed to be harder. harder than what I've been doing. The ridge lines are in such a jumble and they're so stacked up on each other, it's really hard to figure out which is which. That's a lot of rock. It's Mount Cohen. If I was gonna stick to a true ridge route, I would have to go up and down all of those serrated edges. But I'm not a rock climber, so that's not gonna happen. I don't know about that. I think I'm gonna look for a different way. Okay, so now I am right below the spot that I was trying to get down before, and I chose to turn around and find a different way. I had to kind of go down and around. That spot is up there somewhere. Still have to figure out how to get down onto that ridge. That's a relief. Got a break for once. As soon as I rounded the corner, nice easy slope to get down to that ridge. And then from that ridge, I'm just gonna go down into the basin. I'm not even gonna try and mess with any of those cliffs. Well, that's a problem. I was hoping to go down this, but it is like straight down. Not something I want to try. Kind of at a dead end here. I'm gonna take a break, eat a snack, and look at the maps again. Okay, so I actually am gonna mess with those cliffs, but I don't think I actually have to climb them. It looks like there's a way I can go around them, kind of behind the backside. And then there should be another drainage that I can drop into to get down into this basin. That's the plan so far, though. There's a good chance that that other drainage is going to be just as steep as this one. Then I'll have to make up another plan. Okay, change of plans again. I was kind of hoping this would happen. On my way to the other drainage over there around these cliffs, I found what looks like a slightly more doable way down into this first basin. Still very steep, but looks like there are some goat tracks going down there, so that means it's kind of possible. That is intimidating though. Every time that happens, I just think that could be me. This dirt is all very loose. I'm starting to wonder why I thought this was a good way down. Take my time in here. Plan every move out. Know each foothold and handhold before I use it. No guessing games here. Each step is a victory here. So slow. So slow and careful. And that's scary when there's rocks falling above me. I'm starting to hate that sound of rocks falling. Taking my time. Do not rush anything. That was bound to happen sooner or later. Three points of contact, and test each point before using it. And don't spend too much time thinking about how dangerous this is. Can't get inside your head here. Wow. That was scary. Well, if I never have to do anything like that again, I'll be alright with that. That was nerve-wracking. Not to mention it took forever. I probably could have found a better way down than that. But I'm down here. Now I'm going to be off the ridge for a while I bypass all of this craziness under Mount Cohen. Well, there's got to be some kind of lesson here. After coming down that super sketchy, gnarly, steep descent, very dangerous, one wrong move could have meant serious injury. Made it down that okay. And then I'm just walking across this scree field and I took a digger face first into these rocks, and here's the filter that goes on my lens. Popped that off and cracked it. Scratched up my lens and camera pretty good. Thank God it still works. I didn't actually break anything too seriously. Scratched up my hand a little bit. But I was just walking across this scree that I've done hundreds of times before with no issue. This is supposed to be the easier and safe part. So stupid. I just wasn't being careful. Obviously I'm upset that that happened, but it could have been a lot worse. That's a realization you come to after the disappointment passes. Little scratch in my hand and a cracked filter isn't that big of a deal. I basically landed on my camera. It's kind of a miracle that it's not broken. And my body too. It's a miracle that's not broken. I need a little break to decompress after all that. My nerves feel kind of frayed. Candy bar always helps. Thanks for letting me use your trails. Although backpacking skills aren't exactly useful in regular life, I feel like I'm practicing for real life situations out here. Dealing with stress is a big one of those situations. There are times on these ridge routes that are extremely stressful, and I'm watching myself extremely closely in these situations because the consequences are very extreme and very immediate. I think in regular life the consequences have been delayed, so it's kind of hard to learn from our mistakes because they might happen days or weeks later, so it's hard to connect the dots there. I'll have a lot of thoughts that just tell me to hurry up and get it over with because I don't like the situation that I'm in and I just want to get out of it as quick as possible. I think when we're in stressful situations there are a lot of counterproductive thoughts like that rise up, and we have to take the initiative to play those scenarios out in our head and figure out which ones are actually going to make the situations better or worse. Well, I've got a real tough decision to make here. This is the point where I'm supposed to gain the ridge again, where I will follow it for the rest of the route. The western portion of this route is definitely the most challenging. Probably the most unknown too. I don't really have great information about this part. This is where the most knife edge ridges are and the least amount of kind of bailout options in case I run into a spot that looks impossible. I've been staring at this map and the map on my phone and satellite pictures and all of the scouting pictures that I took on the previous trips out here for the past hour by this lake. Now that I've had some experience with most of the route and being able to compare what it looks like in real life compared to what it looks like on maps, what I'm seeing on the maps here is not very promising. It's pretty scary actually. Looks like in the next 6 miles or so there's going to be 5 or 6 sections of knife edge that are just very questionable. Getting all the way up there, maybe getting through 1 or 2 knife edge sections that are kind of tricky only to reach one that's impossible, and then have to turn around and do the whole thing again in reverse. The risk just doesn't seem worth it. That's kind of what this decision comes down to right here is the risk worth the reward to try and continue on and keep going on the ridgeline from here. And I'm slowly coming to the conclusion that the reward is just not high enough for the amount of risk that I'm going to be facing if I go back up on the ridge. Not to mention I'm pretty far behind schedule. I was hoping to camp at Pine Creek Lake tonight, which is 7 or 8 miles from here, I think. And at this rate I'll be lucky to get there by tomorrow night. It's been a hell of an adventure so far. This has already been one of the most challenging, and parts of it were some of the most scary hiking that I've done. And to think that all of that happened on the easy half of this route, that makes me very uneasy about continuing up on the ridgeline. So I think I'm going to have to call it here and head down to the West Boulder Trail. It's kind of disappointing, but I think this is the smart thing to do. Unlike the trip in the Absaroka Mountains, I don't think I'm quite at my limit yet, but I'm almost positive that I will find my limit if I go up to that ridgeline. And I don't want to be in a situation where I'm having to push past my limit just to get back down here. That would be dangerous. So this time I think I'm quitting just before I hit my limit. So although I am disappointed that I didn't complete the route, it doesn't feel like a failure because that wasn't my primary goal to begin with. The primary goal was to come out here and find a real sense of adventure, to push myself, to find where my limits are, and to confront the unknown, and maybe try and convert a little bit of that unknown into the known. And I think I have done that. Obviously, knowing these mountains better doesn't really help me in regular life at all, but that process of coming out here to confront the unknown and figuring out what it takes to understand it is extremely valuable, because we're doing that all the time in regular life. But by doing things like this, I'm actually getting practice at dealing with the unknown, and I feel like I can apply that process to just about anything in life now.